Are you tired of spending your time and money chasing strategy after strategy only to discover what worked 10, 5, or even 2 years ago is not working now? Things shift fast in the online space, and if you're not keeping up, you're getting left behind. It's time for something different. Welcome to the Marketing, Media, and Money Podcast, where every single episode will be jam-packed with proven, profitable strategies, behind-the-scenes secrets, and what's working now resources from industry experts and global influencers to help you scale your business, shorten your learning curve, and stand out in a crowded, noisy marketplace. And now, your host, award-winning marketing and media strategist, and international speaker, Patty Farmer.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to this edition of the Marketing, Media, and Money Podcast. I am your host, Patty Farmer, and I am so excited to be here with you today, and I'm really looking forward to sharing today's industry expert with you. And let me tell you a little bit about her. So Karen Donaldson is a celebrity communication, body language, and confidence coach and an international speaker. She's the go-to expert for both Cosmopolitan and Women's Health magazine. Karen is committed to helping ready and willing professionals become that confident leader and communicator who's comfortable in their own skin and whom others are drawn to and want to follow. Karen not only coaches professionals, senior executives, celebrities, and entrepreneurs across the globe, she also speaks and has spoken on stages and virtual stages across North America, Europe, and Africa. And I am so excited to have her on the show today because we are going to talk about some topics that people ask me about all the time. So get your pen and paper out because you're going to have some writer-downers today that you are going to want to implement. So thank you so much, Karen, for being here with me today.
Patty, thanks so much for having me here. It's an honor to be here with you.
Thank you so much. I love that. And I've been wanting to get you on the show for a while. So I'm really glad that you are here today. So let's just dive right in. So one of the things that I always like to really get to know is we all know that we don't really wake up one day and say, oh, I think this is what I want to do. It's always a journey, right? We always have those aha moments that lead us on the path till we get to where we're really living our purpose. And I have to tell you, from everything I know about you, have seen, read about you and stuff, you are spot on where you are supposed to serve. So could you tell us a little bit about what was that journey like and how did you get to where you know that you're doing what you should be doing?
That's a really good question. Thank you for asking that. You're so right. It has been a journey, and no, I just didn't find myself, and it took a while, but here's what the journey is. I'm going to say looked like. It still is. I was essentially a young high school mom, and my last year of high school, Patty, I became pregnant, and I'm from Toronto, Canada. And at the same time, I received a full scholarship to go to a college in the States. And my entire high school, including teachers and my peers, were super excited for me. And shortly after Christmas, I found out that I was pregnant. And when everyone in the school found out, I lost all my friends except for 3 or 4, and all the teachers lost faith in me. They were all disappointed, including family members outside of my mom and my siblings. And for a good month, I wasn't going to school. And Patty, there was one day that I was walking home and I saw my reflection in the bus shelter, and I looked at myself and I said, Karen, you're not diseased, you're not contagious. You're only pregnant, and you're allowing the words of others to define you, and you need to stop it. And if they want to think that way about you, that's their choice. But you also have a choice as to what you think and know to be true about you. And you are the same amazing person you were before you found out you're pregnant, and you are right now. And Patty, I went back to school with my head on strong. And that year, because of how I showed up, I graduated as a valedictorian. I graduated with a President's Award. I received the athletic award, even though I was 8 months pregnant, walking across the stage. And that's where it all began. And I started to share my voice and my truth and supported other people in doing the same thing, because words of others do not define us unless we allow them to. And that was my journey. I started there. At the same time, I had applied to local universities over here in Toronto, and I went into the dean's office. This was when I was 8 months pregnant, and I asked for them to defer my acceptance, and I did. So I actually have a Bachelor of Applied Science. I have now been in business for 10 years. I worked for about 9 years, had a family, and I've been on my own for 10 years. And now I'm literally the communication and body language coach, as well as confidence coach to celebrities across North America, CEOs, senior managers. And I've been speaking on stages and coaching for the last 20 years as far as speaking on stages, but for the last 10. And that's been my journey, is just to help people refine their voice, because we have a voice. Refine it, use it, and know that their voice is worthy. So that's my story in short.
I really love that, because I think that one of the things people realize is nobody else gets to write your story. And we have a tendency, I think, that sometimes even when we make a decision to not do it, it's baby steps, right? Because I think that what happens is we kind of tend to reread the same chapter over and over again, even though we think we're writing a new one, because you can't write a new chapter if you're still reading the old chapter. Correct. So I think that's really important. And I really like what you said about you really have to own your own voice, because I know that I had it when I was growing up, you know, my parents, they just never had a child who was an entrepreneur. There were 5 kids in my family. And my dad worked like 2 jobs. And so they just really didn't have this entrepreneurial spirit child until I came along, and they just didn't know how to deal with it. And they supported everything I did, but they really didn't get it. And I remember hearing things, and I don't think they weren't really trying to be mean, and both my parents are gone now. So, but the thing is, they used to say things to me like, when is enough, Patty? And what are you thinking about doing now? And what are you doing? You know, like, so they always said those things. And even now as an adult, every time I think about doing something new, every now and then I can still hear my mother's voice. And I have to stop myself and say, that's your story. That's not my story. And I think awareness is very important. So I love what you're saying. I think it's really, really important and timely too. And what I really love about it is because I think that really leads into the impact that you really are having across the board, from, you know, TV to radio to magazines, about the verbal and nonverbal communication that we have. I don't think people really realize how important that really is. And so that leads me to a topic that I am really loving that you're talking about right now, which is about virtual etiquette. I read the other day, Karen, that there was a time not that long ago where there were 10 million meetings every day on Zoom, and now there's over 200 million. But I think the thing is, there's more of them, and all different kinds, from virtual networking all the way to online events and everywhere in between. But I think that people don't really always know how to show up as their best self. And so can we talk a little bit about that and what some of that etiquette really is, so that when you think about when you're showing up, this is what you think you're doing, but it may not actually be what everybody else is seeing on the other side, right?
No, absolutely. That's, great thing. I mean, as you shared, the number of virtual meetings online have changed, and meetings defined as let me hang out with my friends online to actual meetings for businesses and organizations. But definitely, I mean, let's just jump straight into it. One of the key things people need to remember, if you're having a virtual meeting, it's either a conference call where it's a phone call, or it's a call where everyone is face to face, or it's a melding of the two where some people, you can't see their image. And for some, it's a literal FaceTime. We truly have to be mindful that if we're going to turn our video camera on, we want to show up like we would if we were with that person face to face. And what I mean by that is, my friends, please, no bedheads. Comb your hair, fix your face. And it doesn't mean a full face of makeup, but would you be in front of them or with them looking that way? Because virtual, what we see is perception as well. So who do you want to be seen as? So that you need to be mindful around that. That's a really big piece. The other piece is ensure that you're dressing like you want to show up. If it's a virtual session, a virtual meeting, especially with work, you want to dress up as professionally as you would if you were going into the office or into the workplace. Now is not the time to show up in your pajamas unless it's a pajama party with some friends of yours. I mean, those are two key things that people really lose sight of. Because we are in the comfort of our home, if that's where you're taking your virtual session, we have that comfortable nature. But no, there's a level of professionalism, especially if you're meeting online for work. That's a huge thing.
I absolutely agree. And I have seen some like really crazy things. And I think that sometimes people just don't realize that even if somebody else is talking and you're not the one speaking, say there's 20 or 25 people on that call, don't think you can't be seen, because you may not be the big picture, but you are there and they can see you, right?
No, for sure. That's absolutely it. The thing is this, when you're, especially in a virtual meeting or whatever setting, if your video camera is on, know that they can see every single movement. So if you choose to take care of your personal hygiene, and I mean, scratch your eye, I'll say it, pick your nose, know that everyone can see it. Like, that's a huge thing. The other thing to keep in mind is this. You want to ensure, if you're not actually speaking, if you're not the one speaking, turn off your volume, because anything that you do, for most online platforms, the person who's making the most noise, and it doesn't mean speaking, making the most noise is who comes up on your image, who comes up as an image on your computer or your laptop or whatever device. So if you decide to lean over and scratch yourself and it's really loud, know that everyone can hear you. And now you're on the showcase and everyone can see you online doing what you're doing. So that's a big thing to remember.
I think that one time about, like a month ago, I was on this virtual meeting and somebody was, kind of giving their points and talking. And there was this girl that was there. And what she did, everybody was introducing themselves and then we were having a speaker. So after she introduced herself, I don't think she realized that she was at the very top in the very corner, and she started taking her makeup out. And so while we were doing this, we could see her putting her mascara on and all this stuff. And I was thinking, you do realize that people can see you. I actually even went into the chat and sent her a private message. And I said, we can actually see you, in case you care, right?
Right.
And I think that sometimes people don't really realize that. And so I think it is very, very important. What are some of the other tips that you could give someone, like from both sides, whether you're the person who's the speaker or the attendee, and maybe just some general tips that people really, I think it's important to know what not to do as well it is to know what to do, right?
Definitely. So here's the thing about your workspace. If you're going to, and a lot of us will use virtual meetings or virtual setting for work, you want to be mindful of what's in the background, because it can say a lot about you, or sometimes you just don't want people in your personal space. So what I normally say is do a quick check, turn on that camera and ensure that whatever is behind you is simple, because you don't want it to be distracting. That's one big thing. I have some clients who I work with and they strategically set up their background with a bookcase so they look, like that scholar. Other people, they might have, dozens of images or artwork that they may not want to showcase. It might be personal. So now is not the time to have that showcase. The other big thing is when we do virtual meetings in a business setting or, your work setting, not everyone has an office at home, and that's okay. But know that we do not want to see your messy cupboard or your messy closet. We don't want to see wine glasses and beer cans at your kitchen sink. So just clean it up, right? Unless you want people in your personal space. So that's one thing you want to think about. The other thing that you want to think about is literally the sound. Know that if your volume is on, we'll pick up everything around. So one of the things you want to do if you're sharing your home or there's other people in your space while you're meeting is just have a conversation and let them know. I have even with some people, they have a bit of a signal. They put like a sticky note on the room door to say, listen, on a meeting, don't come in, right? So just let people know that I'll be on a call, I'll be on a FaceTime session from 1 to 2 or 30 minutes. And it's really important to tell the kids this too, so we don't get them running in the background. And it will eliminate all those distractions for you as well as the people watching you or on that virtual meeting as well.
I love that. And I think that sometimes I feel like setting the expectation level is really important. I know that depending upon what type of a meeting that I am having. I mean, sometimes it is, oh my goodness, we haven't been able to network for a while. Let's just jump on a call and catch up. And then it's okay to say, hey, we're just catching up and stuff. It's okay to be in yoga pants. And that's okay too, when it's that type of setting, but I still wouldn't want them to see some of those things that you talked about, which you'd never find in my house, but I totally get what you're saying. But then there's other times when really it is about business. And so I think then it is okay when I invite people to just say, hey, by the way, it's, business casual or, whatever. I kind of will give them that when I am meeting with my team. There's a certain way I want that to be. So I think from the other side too, we also sometimes have to take responsibility for that ourselves. And rather than really saying, I didn't really like the way they showed up. Yes, that's on them. But maybe there's some things that we could do to set that expectation level. Right. And so let's talk a little bit about that. Are there some things that you think that I think it's really okay to say without being out of line?
Of course. You bring up a really great point. On the side of a bit of organization, it's great to have some guidelines because these virtual type meetings are new to a lot of people. And the way to make sure that we have meetings that don't run on, we know how we hate meetings that run on or having unnecessary meetings, is to set some other guidelines or expectations of people who are showing up. And some of those expectations could be the start time, and let people know if you want them to log in 5 minutes before so you can start on time. Let them know. You want to tell people, when you enter the meeting, because sometimes people will show up with their face and sometimes people will have their video turned off. So all you see is a phone number. You may say something like, whenever you come on, could everyone announce their name so we know who's actually on the session or actually on the meeting? Actually in the meeting. If it's something formal like a team meeting, you want to share some expectations around eating. So you're going to ask that, okay, while we're on camera, while we're doing the meeting, we're going to ask people to not eat. It's just setting some clarity. So there's nothing to be mixed up and there's nothing for someone to say that they did or did not know. So that just helps to the smooth running of this virtual session or this virtual online meeting. And it's nice to have a start time and a stop time and know exactly who is the host and who is leading the meeting so we don't end up talking over each other and not hearing anything or not getting anything done.
I think that's really important too. I think a lot of times people don't realize there is a raise the hand feature and that everybody should mute themselves because sometimes people just kind of interrupt and they are talking over each other. And then I think that sometimes one of the things that I think people really need to realize is if the meeting is being recorded, that could be sent out to other people, right? So they need to think about, it isn't just these 6 people right here. It could be that you're the ones that showed up or you're the ones that were invited for this to talk about this, but now you're sending it out to other people. And so really that is the only way they are going to see you. And you just made that introduction of yourself. And is it the one that you wanted, right? So I think that's really important.
Oh, it is really important. One last thing on that point, as you shared, a lot of meetings will be recorded and it will be left in the database for people who may have missed it or it may be broadcasted out to other people. The one thing you want to think about on a personal level is you really have to be aware of your facial expressions. So normally in a let's say a meeting setting, when we're all in a room, we're face to face. If you, Patty, are talking at one end of the room, we're all facing you. And if you're saying something that I don't necessarily agree with, I might choose to kind of raise my eyebrows or roll my eyes or look away. Know that at that moment when we're face to face, no one can see that reaction. Now, when we're online and you can see my video and say you're sharing something that I may not agree with, and I look away or roll my eyes, know that stays on recording and know that people see you. So you have to be overly aware of your facial expressions and your facial reactions.
Absolutely. And I think those are some really good points. So I hope everybody really wrote some of those down. I think it's really important and easier if you just kind of think about it ahead of time. What's my goal for being here? What is the outcome that I'm looking for? And am I showing up as my best self? How do I want to show up in this meeting? It's kind of like really when you go and you're going to have a meeting with somebody. So say you've been waiting to book this meeting with someone and you're going to go meet them. Sometimes it's at a coffee shop, sometimes it's at their office, wherever it is. Most of us will that morning when they're getting ready, they think about what that meeting is, what's the goal of the meeting, what's the outcome they want, and they dress accordingly and they behave accordingly. I think we should just think the same exact thing when we're going to do a virtual meeting.
For sure. Have a plan. Have a plan of how you want to show up, how do you want to be seen, and how, what you do, what you don't want to say, and make that decision around that whole camera view. Will my camera be on or off? And be aware of what's in your surroundings if you choose to have it on.
Absolutely. And that just kind of leads us to another topic that I really feel that you are an expert on, is really about that body language, right? So we're kind of talking about that online, but those aren't really the only places when you're in a meeting, right? There's also body language really when you're in other places. And I have to tell you that one of the things that really caught my eye on your website, on your blog, was what the way you hold your coffee says about you. I was like, what? That just caught my eye. So kind of tell us a little bit about that, because how we hold our iced coffee, what does that actually say about us? Because I think that's really an interesting topic.
Oh my goodness, that was a fun piece that I did. I was an expert on an article for, I believe it was Cosmopolitan or Women's Health magazine, but nonetheless, we can tell a little bit about someone, and once again, just like the overarching theme around body language is we can see how someone's truly feeling on the inside by how they move their hands, their physical gestures, how they sit, how they look, micro expressions, and how they hold things or don't hold things. So when it comes to that piece there that I did, when it comes to your iced coffee, like when people hold a drink, whether it be cold or hot, the closer they have their fingers together, the more they're looking to be self-soothed, or they're not as comfortable as can be. Because here's the thing, when it comes to body language, if you think back to the times when we're small, if you think to babies around you, whether you have one or not, they like to be soothed by someone else's hand, or in absence of that, we self-pacify. And what I mean is we touch ourselves. So when you hold your coffee, and just want to say this is situational. If it's freezing cold or totally piping hot, that's different. That's for safety reasons. But if it's something that's not uncomfortable, the closer your fingers are together, what you're telling or showcasing is that you're not truly comfortable in that situation. The tighter the grip, the same thing. You're feeling some type of stress, some type of feeling of anxiety. Now, the looser your fingers are and the more room there is apart between your actual fingers as far as holding it, that means you're a little bit more comfortable in the current setting or with what you're doing. So those are the two key things to look at, just how close your fingers or the other person's fingers are when they're holding a drink, because it's very telling as to their state of mind in that specific moment.
That is so interesting. I love that, because I really think, a lot of times you'll see someone, and this could be virtual or in person, and the way they're standing or whatever, like, it's something. Right. This is something. You don't exactly know what it is, but it is saying something. And I think that we now live in a world of video. So whether you're on a virtual meeting, we're on video, right? Video is such an important part of our marketing strategy nowadays, really, is to do video, whether it is a 2-minute video, a 20-minute Facebook Live, whether it's your intro video on your website. I mean, there's so many ways video play right now. So I think it's really interesting when you think about body language. So I know that you have some, not just tips, but you actually have a little bit of facts for us too that might be a little bit eye-opening for us. So what do you think about sharing some of those? I think that really, I was like, wow, that is super interesting. I love that.
So here's the fun stuff. So when you're talking about virtual, and this can even be done face-to-face, but let's just keep it virtual. One of the things that you can do to kind of build a relationship with people, because here's the thing, when we're doing virtual, there's that barrier of the physical phone, the physical laptop, the physical computer. So we have to find other ways to connect with people. And one of the ways you can quickly connect with people is to mimic or mirror what they're doing. And what I mean is you would mirror or copy or mimic their hand gestures. If someone's speaking at a slower pace, you'd align and you'd speak at the same pace. If someone's leaning to one side, you'd lean to that side as well. The thing that you want to be careful about is you don't want to be automated, because otherwise it looks awkward. So you're going to slowly do the same pose. You're going to slowly speak at the same pace or the same rate or with the same tone. And what it says on a subconscious level is that I find you interesting, right? It shows that, I want to be like you on a subconscious level. And we all know that we like to do things with people who are similar to us. So that's a quick way to build a relationship, to just mirror the other person. Another thing is this: you can either read it or be intentional and do it yourself. If you want to show that you're truly attentive or truly present when someone else is speaking to you, when you virtually or face to face, you would tilt your head to the side. And what that essentially does, it showcases that I'm listening to what you're saying. So just think about your head straight, tilted to the side. That's a showcase of someone being interested in what you have to say and wanting to be there, right? Another interesting tip that I love, and I think everyone needs to know, is how can you tell if someone might be fibbing? How can you tell if someone's lying or saying something that's not 100% truthful? You can tell by how, when someone speaks, if they touch their nose quite often, it may mean that what they're saying is not the truth. And let me tell you why. When we're nervous, one of our physiological reactions is that blood rushes to the surface of our face. And it rushes to the surface of our nose and our orbital or eye area as well. Right? So you'll see, even with, just have done some coaching for different types of people, but nonetheless, if you're going to the airport and they're staring dead in the eye, they're looking to see if you're touching your face. And that's indicative that what you're saying may not be true. So keep your hands away from your face because it showcases that you're not telling the truth. And likewise, as you're in a session or speaking with someone, they might say something that all of a sudden start to scratch their face. It's indicative that maybe what they're saying might be a lie. So those are some important cues that you could use for sure.
Now, those are certainly interesting when you are in certain situations, that it would be really, really important to know that in life and in business, right? So I think that is super important. All those parents out there right now are thinking, right? So I think that it is,
yes.
But in business, that's really important. And I love that it's the same, whether it's virtual or in person. So I think that is really interesting. And I know that when I look at video, so say I go to somebody's site or somebody is, sharing a YouTube video or something. Sometimes when I watch the video, it's not the content. Like the content could be great either way, right? But sometimes the way people show up on video is so inviting, right? It's so inviting, and you just kind of lean in and you just know that they're so approachable and relatable, and you just feel good, right? It's that know, like, trust factor. You just feel so good with it. And then there's other people that, when they could be sharing exactly the same content, and when you look at them, you kind of feel like it's a marketing tactic, right? This is just marketing. It might not be who they really are. And if you met them in person, you may not get the same thing, because I know for me, probably the best compliment I have ever had is when people say to me, you know what, Patty, when I meet you, you're exactly the person that I see online. And when I hear you speak or on social media, you're exactly the same. And I love that, right? And so I think it's really important now to really know that in video, it's a very, very important what you're doing. So do you have some tips for us there?
Oh, for sure. Yeah, that's the one thing that people, let me pause for a moment. Your energy is infectious, first of all, Patty. I just have to tell you that. Your energy is completely infectious. And the thing about it, when you're doing anything on video, you have to know, once again, back to that barrier. And one of the ways that you can engage and bring yourself to the platform as if people were in front of you is, I always give people or my clients a strategy. Take a moment and visualize before you hit go or before you count down 3, 2, 1, or a minute before you go live. Visualize something that brings you joy, that brings you ultimate joy. So you can truly get a feeling of being happy and with, in a great state, right? That's one strategy I use. Another one is I also tell people to play their favorite song. We all have that one song that when we hear it, we could literally get up and dance. And if you need to get up and dance to get your mindset and your physicality in the space to show up really powerfully online, do it. Play your favorite song for 30 seconds. Play that visualization, that situation, or that great happy moment with a friend or with yourself through your head. Run it through your head so you can show up powerfully online. And then you will show up as yourself, right? You have to remember that you have to enhance whatever you're doing online so it can come across as what you would do face-to-face terms, right? One other strategy that I use for clients is this. A lot of the time when we think virtual sessions, virtual meetings, that type of thing, we think about sitting down because we want to be comfortable. If you truly want to showcase that energy, I encourage people to stand up. Set your computer up however you need to. You might need to grab some boxes or books if you don't have a stand, but stand up and do your session because we have energy that runs through us when we're standing up. So sometimes we just need to get away from sitting down for that whole hour meeting or interchange, stand up for half an hour, sit down for half an hour. And when you're doing your own things, we need to see that energy from beginning to end. So those are some strategies to help you really show up as that powerful person you are online.
I think that's really interesting because early on, one day I was in this store with my husband and I saw this orchestra stand, kind of like how when somebody is playing, it has a lip on it and, they put their sheet music on it. Yes. And I got this idea and I said, I'm going to buy one of those. And when I clip my phone or whatever the case may be, I love that I can stand. And if there's anything I need to maybe have notes or something I want to make sure I don't forget, I can print it in great big font. I put it on there and I can stand and feel really good and stuff. And it has served me really, really well. So I think that tip of yours is very, very good. And I think as a speaker, a lot of people don't know this. I've shared it, but not everybody knows. When I first became a speaker, I was really fearful of being a speaker. So I've been a speaker for 9 years. For the first 18 months, every time, not sometimes, every single time before I got on stage, I was violently ill. Every single time for like 18 months. And then I finally got over it. But I was just paralyzed at times. And one of the things that really helped me was before I went on stage, for me to just literally have this little moment of silence. Like you said, think of something joyful and then to remind myself that every time I get on stage, it isn't even about me. It's about them and it's not about me. And for me to just picture in my mind that if something I say could just help one person, that was the reason I was there. And that would just make me so happy. And then it really made me stop being sick. That one thing just really helped me so much. But I think sometimes we're critical about ourselves. We kind of get in our own head. And the reality is when we're showing up to serve, it isn't really about us at all. Right?
So well stated. It is not about us. And once we can start to get out of our own heads, then we just give. Like that's the best thing to do, whether it's online, whether you're a professional speaker or not, just come from a place of gratitude and service. Just give, because no matter who you are, if you think you're an expert or not, what we know has a capacity to help at least one person around us. Just like you said, think of it that way and just give. And it just reduces how we feel about showing up. And we release this comparisonitis. I like to call it comparisonitis with everyone else. And we start to become okay with showing up as ourselves unapologetically.
I love that word, unapologetically, so much. I have to tell you, I have a friend that uses that word a lot, and I really like it. It speaks to me very well. Right. I like to really say that for me, I choose to lead with contribution, and compensation will follow. It's how I do my life. It's how I do my business. I just really feel if you always lead with contribution, compensation will follow, but it shouldn't be the lead-in, right? I really think that is really important. So I have to tell you another thing I really found on your site that I really loved was this whole confidence bootcamp. So I really love that. I think it's something really important, but here's what kind of piqued my interest. What piqued my interest is that you have a confidence bootcamp for women and a separate one for men. And I thought that's interesting. Now, I know that men and women, when we're together, kind of can sometimes change the dynamic. And I get that in the conversation, but I really would love to hear what is different in the boot camp for men and for women.
I'm glad you asked. So yes, so the Confidence Bootcamp for Men and the Confidence Bootcamp for Women, they're online programs that people can work at their own pace through. So it's nice, right? But here's the difference. The reality is this. men and women are different, right? When it comes to communication, there are certain aspects in which we're human and it's the same. But there's also realities around how we show up as females and how we show up as males that are substantially different. And I'm that person who's not going to pretend it doesn't exist. So with the Confidence Handbook for Women, the whole thing is, even both handbooks to start off with, it's truly discovering, it's like a counterintuitive secret on how to increase your confidence and learn how to speak up with ease and be comfortable in your own skin. And the whole theme around both bootcamps are based around my philosophy that confidence is not an emotion. It's an actual attitude and a behavior that's always within our control if we choose it. Now, with the Confidence Handbook for Women, the online program for women, we focus on a matter that's real to women. And so there's a whole segment in there called Lady Talk. And we have the conversation around, showing up powerfully and sometimes being perceived as aggressive versus assertive and how to manage that. We also talk about this other thing that happens often when women are in a powerful position or they show up powerfully. We're often called the B word. And I'm not going to say it because I know everyone knows exactly what I'm talking about. And what is behind that and how to manage that. So that's what the Confidence Handbook for Women looks like. Now, when it comes to the Confidence Handbook for Men, they have been groomed in a totally different way as far as how they should show up and not show their emotions. So when it comes to connecting with people at a human level, we have a whole chapter that's called, or a whole segment in that online program called Man Talk. And we talk about how do you truly connect with people through the emotional side that you have, but for most males have been groomed to really sit back and not use, and they've been fed messages that, if you ask someone how they are, or you ask about their feelings, it means that you're A, B, and C. So I address the elephant in the room because we can only change what we can acknowledge. So I acknowledge it. I show you what it is. I show you how to reframe it and how to create different patterns in your life. So you learn how to speak up. You learn how to show up. You realize that your voice matters. There's a little bit of body language in there, just some open and closed body language that everyone should know. And I truly share how you can be heard in your relationships, whether it's a personal relationship or a professional relationship. So that's the difference between the two, man talk and lady talk, but the foundation is the same.
I think that is really so important because I know that whether you're a CEO, whether you're working in corporate, whether you're a solopreneur, there are times that we are interacting with the opposite sex. So whether or not you actually, that is who you choose to work with, or whether you're somebody who really likes to work with women or men, whatever the case may be, there are times that we do have the other gender, right? And I actually have a friend who says that women want to be treated equally, not identically. And I've always really loved that saying that she said. That really always hit for me because I think it is so true. Because I have been in a room where there's all women and then a male comes in and then they talk and literally everything changes. It's just crazy how much it changes. But then I have also been where I have seen men and then a woman comes into the room and it changes for them too. So I think that in the marketplace right now, it is important for them to know how to interact well, right? So I think that's really good. Much needed, which really leads me into something that I think is very exciting is before we got on the interview, you shared with me this new project that you have around this confidence and that it's really about a confidence movement. And I really love that. I love that. And so share with us a little bit about that. Tell us about this project because I'm already excited. I don't know a lot about it yet, but I have to tell you, it sounds very, very exciting and timely and needed.
Thank you so much. When we started this interview and we talked about, you asked me to share my story and how it came about. This has been the basis and the foundation of everything that I do. And it's disrupting what people believe to be true about confidence. So this movement has started. It's being created and it's growing. And it is around confidence disruption, right? And for me, it's helping individuals around the world reclaim their confidence, helping them to realize, not teaching people, because it's always been true and it's life that's happened to us that has put on the shield, and we're comparing and we're pulling back and we're not speaking up because we've been groomed to not speak up. And if you speak up and it's something that's opposite to the mass, it's wrong, or we shouldn't, or there's something wrong with us and we internalize it. So the whole movement is around disrupting confidence and reminding people that we were all born confident. That 1-year-old who thinks that they can walk down the stairs with no one holding their hand was born confident. That was all of us. It wasn't till, we got into the educational system where speaking up was wrong, speaking out of tune was wrong, and we took that, internalized it. So just reminding people how to refine that confident self and redefine the most powerful version of themselves. So with that, I recently had a 14-day confidence challenge that was humongous, and we're just getting support of a lot of people around the world to get people to the right place, just to voice themselves and take ownership of what they believe to be true about themselves, because it's a choice. And let's start to let go of, it's because of where I lived. It's because of my parents. And that whole reality, false reality that I am a product of my environment. That's not true. You're a product of your choices. And when you decide to make the choice to choose all the time, you can have anything you want. You can be anything you want. You can show up however you want to show up in any given situation. So that's what my movement's based around. And it's literally called Confidence Disruptor, right? And it's just to disrupt your current perception and remind you of who you truly are. So we're just getting started, but we're on fire.
That sounds fabulous. Absolutely fabulous. So Karen, how can my audience connect with you?
Great question. There's a couple of ways they can. For those of you who are on Instagram, my handle is at @TheRealKarenDonaldson. That's one. Also, if you're on LinkedIn, it's the same, at @TheRealKarenDonaldson. And one of the easiest places to find me is on my website, www.karendonaldsoninc.com. And there you can find all of my contact. I'm a real person. If you reach out, I'll respond. You have my 100% promise. It will be me.
That's fabulous. And not only that, but you come bearing gifts too. So could you share with the audience the wonderful gift that you have for them as well?
Oh, indeed. So I have a little gift for you. It's called the 3 top body language tips to increase your confidence in any setting. So whether it be you're that parent who's going into an interview for a job or with your children, or whether it be for business, or whether you're an entrepreneur and working with a client. So 3 top body language tips to increase your confidence in any setting. So that's a freebie for you, a little gift for you.
And thank you so much. We appreciate that. And we will have the link to that in the show notes. So make sure you look there for pretty much links for everything she's talked about in actuality. So now we come to one of my favorite portions of the show, which is #OpenMic, kind of my version of social karaoke. Mm-hmm. And this is where I pass the mic over to our guest and ask her to share her number 1 marketing, media, or money strategy with you. So Karen, what do you have to say here? Because I know you're going to have something really juicy and good.
Oh, heck yeah. So what I have to say is this, my number 1 media tip, marketing tip, is be visible and stop shying away from promoting yourself. You see, when we start to promote ourselves, for some people it feels icky. But you know that to get over that icky feeling, you have to do more of it. You can't show up in the world with your powerful self by hiding. Be visible and stop shying away from it. The key thing is this: you are enough. You were born enough, and you always will be enough. And that's the quickest thing, or that's the one thing you need to remember. Get out there, be visible. You're enough. There is no one else like you in this world. And by virtue of that alone, there's nothing to compare you to. So know that you're born enough and get yourself out there and serve and support people in the biggest way you can.
I told you it'd be juicy and good. That was fabulous. Thank you so much, Karen. And thank you so much for being here with me today and for sharing your zone of genius with us so generously. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me, Patty. It's been such an honor, to be a guest with such a fabulous host. First of all, you make it so easy. So thank you for having me.
Thank you. And thank you to our guests out here in the audience for joining us on the Marketing, Media, and Money podcast. If you enjoyed today's episode, please like, subscribe, and review the podcast on your favorite listening platform. Join us on Facebook in the Marketing, Media, and Money magazine, podcast, and events Facebook group. And I hope each one of you have a phenomenal day. And remember, if your day isn't already phenomenal, you have the choice to make it so.
Thank you for joining us today on the Marketing, Media, and Money podcast. To shorten your learning curve even more, make sure to grab your free copy of the Marketing, Media, and Money magazine at www.marketingmediamoney.com. I promise your business will thank you.